Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to have a great discussion on one of the hottest topics in retail, the rise of retail media. Retailers have gone absolutely mad for ads, and there's no wonder. Retail media is a multi-billion-dollar profit-pumping opportunity with margins that can be in excess of 70%. And as part of that, the store is once again the core when it comes to driving the engagement that fuels retail media. Now, this is particularly true as the digitization of stores gains momentum, and that's something we're going to talk a lot about today. So more immersive and engaging experiences are just around the corner, and the promise of dynamic content and true personalization at the shelf are no longer a pipe dream. So I can't wait to get this conversation started with our panel of experts. But before we get to the introductions, I want you to know that we're taking questions at the end, but we'll be collecting them all along the way. So as you think of your questions, hit that chat button. We really want to hear from you. So getting back to those introductions, I'm Carol Speakerman, president of Speakerman Retail. I'm a retail speaker and advisor who works with a crazy diverse group of retail stakeholders to define market messaging and refine B2B business development. And with me is David Morgan. He's the VP of Customer Value Proposition at SES Amagatag. David has over 40 years of experience working with retailers and brands and across a range of tech, consulting, and software companies. David's known for his expertise in digital transformation, customer engagement, and strategy development. So welcome, David.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And Martin Bailey is the founder of MWB Advisory Limited. He has over 30 years of experience as a food and fashion executive and board member for leading global brands like Tesco, Lidl, and Primark. And he's also a fellow Rethink Retail influencer and advisor. And we also have Kalman Mazay with us. He's the store manager for Kavanaugh's Belsize Park, which is an award-winning retailer known for its enticing food-to-go options, in-store trials, and for being a true store of the community. So I want to welcome the panelists. Thank you for being with us today to share your expertise and insights. And also I want to welcome everyone who's attending. And I think a really good place to start would be to talk about this wave of new technology. And Martin, I'll turn to you for this. How do you see all of this new technology that's being unleashed shaping the way that shoppers are engaging with products and purchasing products in store?
There is no doubt past or post-COVID where we had to go digital. There's no doubt on a daily basis, new technology is coming and is shaping and reshaping. Examples would be the shelf edge label and the displays that we're going to hear a lot about with SES Amagatag, which I'm very excited about. Other things like mobile apps that allow customers to scan labels, compare prices, access product information live in store. We have AR, we have VR, which is enhancing the in-store experience. I can see a product physically and digitally in my store and also in my home. And then you've also got the likes of trying on virtual clothing, which is quite exciting. And I experienced it actually in the WOW Concept store in Madrid. Additionally, you've got the obvious, the Amazon Go walkout technology, where we're now going past the mobile app and using that as a payment rather than actually checkouts of the future. And the important thing is, I would say technology is improving in-store experience. Still a long way to go without a shadow of a doubt. We need more immersive experience. We definitely need to be more convenient. We need to be seamless, definitely personalized. The future is an omnipresence future, which is both in-store and digitally, but we're going to hear that a lot today, which is exciting.
Yeah, I like that. Omnipresent definitely is an operative phrase that wraps it all together. That's quite a survey of the technologies, just the new ones that have hit retail and that specifically apply to the store. And so, David, we know that this push to e-commerce was a big story, and everyone was talking about everything swinging right back over to digital during the pandemic. But we also know that the majority of purchases are still happening in stores. But why do you think it's so important to reach shoppers at the shelf specifically?
Yeah, Carol. So, I mean, first of all, I would say from our perspective, we're better than to engage the shoppers at the shelf while they're in their shopping trip, making their decisions. We know as well as this huge percentage still of people shopping in physical stores, that a lot of their decisions can be made and are made at the shelf. And quite often, particularly if you look in perhaps a grocery environment, we know that shoppers often end up in almost an autopilot mode. And there are things that they're not spotting that could be very advantageous to them, things that both the retailers and the brands want them to take note of. And so we need approaches and technologies that disrupt that, get people to stop, engage, and actually learn about what may be important to them and the store and the brands want to put in front of them. You know, we know that this works. We believe that, and I think Martin kind of alluded to this, that shoppers don't think in channels. They think about their experience. And I think what they've learned of the positive things they get online, they'd like to have a similar experience of those positive things when they go into a physical store. And it's actually disappointing if they don't. And I would say that what we've done already, we've seen really strong case studies and examples of where this really does work. And it works across multiple categories. I was asked by a leading brand the other day, you know, does this work in lots of different categories? And we were able to show that it does. And I think if you do this right, if you can really monetize the foot traffic, provide a really strong return on whatever's being spent on advertising, people will want to do this more and more. It'll unlock brand budgets for those retailers that are doing this. So there is opportunity to grow that investment. We've seen uplifts of sales from anything from 30% and in some cases as high as 300. And obviously we look at the category, make sure we're not damaging the category, that we're growing that. But if you think about, if we get a percentage of shoppers, one extra item in the basket, what that's actually worth to everybody.
Wow, what an opportunity, all the upside potential there. And, you know, Carmen, I'll turn to you now, because I know that you're in the trenches every day, seeing this live and, you know, working with a lot of these solutions. And what is working, in your opinion? What are some of the things that you're seeing that are working that maybe in the past weren't even on the table?
Well, for us, you know, our store is a digital store in a sense that we have digital labeling, we have video rails. There's a lot of technology being used in store, but what works for us most is the video rails, is the movement. It's that it's very eye-catching. And any areas where we have introduced video rails, we have seen such a significant uplift. And, you know, customers love the experience because there's a brand recognition as well. You know, we're promoting brands that are well known, and people from a distance can see that that product is there. You don't need to get as close to the shelves just to be attracted by the product. So that works for us really, really well.
Interesting. Well, and that's quite a task too, I can imagine, actually fitting videos on a rail and just deciding what kind of content is appropriate for that medium.
Well, we've been trying a couple of things, and we've learned over the number of months what are the offers that are, you know, working better than others. And we always utilize the digital screens in areas where we think that they will work. And, you know, sometimes we mix things up a bit and move them around because otherwise they become static, and that's not what we want.
Yeah. Great point. Well, one thing that I think can get overlooked in all this excitement about retail media and the opportunity is the impact that it has on collaboration and traditional collaborative models, particularly between retailers and brands. And I think, you know, so many of these relationships are changing as retailers or agencies find themselves competing with retailers, as retailers are competing with one another now for ad spend. So, Martin, what are your thoughts on these perhaps new collaborative models that will need to be in place as retail media accelerates, and particularly as we talk about these renewed collaborations with the in-store environment?
Yeah, Carol, as you said, traditionally retailers have relied on brands to advertise their products in store and then in traditional media like print, for example. Obviously, today, the new retail media networks where retailers can actually monetize their own media, so websites, mobile, in-store, and advertise space from a brand point of view. Now, that shift in itself does talk about collaboration a lot more, and I'll give maybe live examples in a second. But from a advantage point, the retailers now have the ability to offer brands a targeted advertising opportunity based on the customer data, their own customer data, as well as their own shopping behaviors. And that's quite an exciting part of the internal data, the retailer data. And brands in turn are able to reach the target audience a lot quicker, which is important for them, more effectively. And probably for the first time, they can truly measure the impact of their advertising campaign, where before there was loads of data, but they couldn't put it together. This actually makes that a lot more simpler. So the collaboration is a no-brainer without a shadow of a doubt. And look, if you think about it, retail media was really only born by Amazon.com as the advertising business in 2012. And if you think about the size of it, in the last 12 months, it's grown by 42% year on year globally. And it reckons they'll be forecasted by 65% by 2027. So kind of putting it into numbers just to frighten everybody or excite everybody, probably more importantly, is in 2021 by Statistica, the global retail media spend was $98 billion globally. And they reckon it's 168 by 2027, okay? And that looks and sounds very spicy, of course, I appreciate that. But just to bring a bit of reality to the data, actually Amazon itself in 2021 was 31.2 billion in spend. So actually that 168 billion seems very realistic by 2027. And if you think about even today's news, we're actually in the UK, we have Tesco's and Pinterest that's now got a collaboration. Tesco's being the largest retailer in the UK, and Pinterest being the largest digital community with 17 million on a monthly subscribers, with 1 in 3 mothers actually on that on a monthly basis. It's a no-brainer in terms of collaboration. But you've got some really big players like Amazon, Walmart Connect, Target, Rundell, Carrefour, Link, Tesco Media, as I mentioned, Zalando Media Solutions. You've got a lot of big players that are doing it in-house, but collaboration for this medium to small is a non-negotiable. Speed to market, speed to access, and speed to that 168 billion revenue. So it is definitely the largest growing organic value creation for a retailer today. So exciting times without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, lots of great statistics there on the size of the prize. And, you know, I think you made such a good point too. You know, of course, a lot of retailers are building these capabilities in-house, or they leaned into partnership and now they're bringing them in-house. But even so, you may not see a press release on it, but they're still leaning into those partnerships. And, you know, I don't know of any retailer that's truly going it completely alone when it comes to retail media. So yeah, thank you for sharing those insights on collaboration. And you also were talking about, you know, the data piece of it. And, you know, back in the day, there was a phrase, not everything that matters can be measured. And I was guilty of using it myself, you know, when talking about so many things just even a few years ago that you could not quantify. And, you know, so you would have to justify a lot of shopper marketing initiatives some other way and say, hey, just trust us, it'll work out. You know, things are cranking. But, you know, thanks to the store digitization and some of the points that you made, Martin, now a lot of those touch points in store can be monetized and can be measured. So David, what kind of progress are you seeing in that regard when it comes to this ability to finally analyze and monetize not just digital activity, but a lot of the activity that's happening in stores?
Yeah, it's a great point. And this is a really key part of what SES is doing with our Engage solution set and our strategy. We're taking a very holistic approach to this because fundamentally measurement is key. And, you know, I've come across many projects where people put something in that seemed like it would be good, and the only conclusion they can draw at the end is, hey, that was nice. And unfortunately, hey, that was nice doesn't drive any ROI decisions and investment. So measuring is really important. So for example, what we typically do is we will measure the lead in to a campaign, what's happening during that campaign, what happens afterwards. We'll compare it with previous years. We'll look at the category as a whole. And we do that with using the trading data, inventory data, and other data that we create, which I'll come on to in a moment. And we have a solution called Pulse. We have another called Memory, which are able to pull in that data, and they integrate very well with all of the touch points in the store. But in addition to that, and in terms of creating this extra data, for a brand, for example, from a collaboration point of view, the store becomes a black box. They don't know what's going on in the store. They don't know whether Traditionally, what they've deployed is there and running, the shelves stocked up. So in addition, and we have these running with Calman, for example, we actually deploy Captana cameras opposite the rails. So we're able not only to use them for monitoring shelf availability and so on in real time, but also what we call proof of play. So being able to stitch together the images we have of the shelf and play that back for the executive, for the brand partners to say, look, this is what happened over the last month. Compare that with your sales data, your other inventory data, starts to build a much bigger picture. What's working, what's not. And then with the ability in a platform like this to change very quickly. If it's working, great, learn from it, do more of it. If it's not, make the change really, really quickly. What we're able to do is to drop price tickets onto the video rails because we know that that's important to customers to see that price. And we've also been working on a range of sensors which go with the rails so that we can track as well dwell, direction people are coming from, their reach and so on. So you can only imagine then as you start to push this data together with all of the other information, you're starting to build a real true 360 picture of what's happening with the agility to do something about it. And I think that's really the other key thing is both the brands, the retailers and any other partners involved, they want to know that if they find an insight, they can actually do something about it really quickly and really efficiently and not have to run around trying to print bits of paper and chuck cardboard and plastic into the store, half of which, as we know, can end up in the car park in the rain because we kind of missed the window. So, you know, there's a lot to go after still, but the tools are coming together to make this really possible.
Well, that's exciting. And a couple of things that you said really jumped out at me because it sounds like these solutions, we talk so much about monetizing the data and the opportunities for retailers and brands. I think the dynamic piece of it is super exciting, you know, to be able to change things on the fly based on what you're collecting. But it also obviously provides a lot of benefits to employees, I would think, because it would seem to make things a lot easier and allow them to focus on other tasks when you have, you're driving greater efficiency in that way. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the worst job in a store is changing tickets at the shelf, paper tickets. You add to that they've now got to put the promotions out and there's all this collateral that's come in and they don't quite know where it goes. And I've got to do all my price ups first, otherwise I might not be legal and I'm running out of time. And nobody wants to do that. So we do see a real positive impact on retail as well and on the staff to make their lives more interesting, better. You go into Calman's store and every single person in that store is smiling. They're engaged. I'm not just saying that, Calman, because you're on the call. They're positive. They'll talk very positively about what they do in the store. And so, yeah, it's not just about efficiency. It's about making the employees' jobs better, more enjoyable.
And Carol, just to quickly jump in, I've also been to the store numerous of times, and I completely agree with the comment from David. It is a great store for a lot of great reasons that we're talking about, but the people in particular.
Well, let's hear it from the source. Calman,
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience with all that these gentlemen have been talking about. And, you know, again, you're in the trenches seeing it every day. How does it benefit? How do your employees engage with these solutions? And how do you see it benefiting your customers?
Look, on the store level, what we see is a huge reduction in hours that we spend on ticketing, for example. You know, the guys already touched on it, but it's actually very significant. You know, we do change our promotions every few weeks. And I used to have a number of people working on it for 3 days in a row, going around with tiny paper tickets. And now it's a touch of a button. And you focus on other things. You can focus on customer service instead. And it's just a huge help for us. Also, it's helping our customers. We use a lot of technology in store where we have, for example, QR codes on some of our products where you can scan it with your phone and you get information. You know, we launched this in our wine section just a couple of weeks ago because we found that that's one of the areas that customers are asking a lot of questions and not all the staff are knowledgeable, but at least they can show if you just scan it with your phone, you get all the information about tasting notes or anything like that. So we use technology in other ways as well. We have technology developed in store where we are highlighting items that are environmentally friendly or fair labor. And that's all helping the customer experience.
Yeah, that's great. You're just basically providing the tools to where customers can get what they need and not necessarily taking a one-size-fits-all approach, because through the QR codes and other means, they can seek out the information that they specifically want.
Yes. And we have a lot of customers with very specific needs, and the staff, as knowledgeable as they are, a lot of the times they don't know all the aspects of it. So we're working with them through the ticketing. For example, if someone is looking for a halal meal, a kosher meal, gluten-free, we can highlight those on the ticketing. And it's much easier for customers to navigate the store and find the specific items that they're looking for.
Well, does any of the data that you're collecting from that and from some of these special situations, is that impacting the products that you're ordering and inventory, and does it trickle all the way down?
Yes, 100%. So we use an AI called Pulse in conjunction with all the cameras and the ticketing and everything like that, which is suggesting to us, what are the items that customers are looking for? What are the items that constantly selling out and not being replenished fast enough? So we are more reactive. Before, it would take you a couple of weeks to pick up on something that's being sold out. Now I know within a day or two that this item comes in, goes, and there's a gap, and that's the last thing we want in our store. We want to be fully available for our customers, and all this technology is helping us to achieve that.
Awesome. Wow. Just multifaceted benefits all the way around. Well, we've been talking about all of these new options that are so exciting and that will drive retail media and shopper engagement going forward. But let's do a roundtable on what's next, or where you see all of this going next. Martin, what do you think? What's next on the horizon?
Retail media is going to be shaped definitely by the trends of increased personalization. So I think it was mentioned earlier on, how do we get a personalized journey? How do we get personalized recommendations? How do they know it's targeted to Martin Bailey? What is the in-store displays that are specific to what I'm looking for? And there's a lot of AI that can be included in that, but that's going to shape retail media. Integration of technology is a no-brainer with AR and VR. That will continue to grow and extend in that immersive retail. And I think that's very exciting, if I could be honest with you, especially for the relevance of the omnipresent store. That's the key point. Carmen perfectly teed me up nicely. Without a shadow of a doubt, sustainability. The new generations are going to want and expect and make their decisions based on your ESG. If you can highlight that, communicate that, it's going to be a massive plus in terms of that brand affinity and that love between the consumer and the love between the brand. And the integration on online and offline, I can't express it enough. I know it's 70%, 30%, it's actually 100%. And that's the important part. How do we capture the journey for me on a high street, sat at home, in my garden, walking to store, walking in store, walking out of store? And that's the very exciting part. And that's going to shape retail media. So exciting times for retail without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, that was a great job of articulating the overarching opportunity, definitely. So, David, what do you think? What's next?
Well, I think there's an awful lot that can come next from what we're only learning right now. And I'd say, three of the big things are content, and content. And, what we're finding in every discussion we're having, nobody really has all the answers. Now we're getting some great advice from real experts in the field. And we're seeing and testing and learning. And what we're seeing is people really starting to understand, I can at very low risk go and try something. And if it isn't working, I can change it. I've got that agility. And really we're aiming at what we call a more benefit, less effort approach. Is the more we can make this easy to do, people can focus their time on understanding what it is. And Martin was saying, for example, about the upcoming, Gen Z or Gen Z, however you choose to pronounce it. We know that ethical alignment is incredibly important. And that's why we've started to do the things we have with the sustainability badges and so on. And we're measuring which ones really resonate with people. What do they understand and so on. We have facilities that we're bringing out again, which I think people are they're in the platform now, but people are only just starting to think about how they use them. Playlists, for example. Why wouldn't you create a playlist of different bits of content that actually run one after the other? So that touch point doesn't have to be dedicated to one message. Why wouldn't you use scheduling capabilities that says, you know what, I know the profile of what's going on in my store in the morning trade is fundamentally different to lunchtime, to the evening, or people coming into the consumer electronics store browsing on a weekend, whereas maybe they were rushing in during the week to get a cable for something they were trying to do at work. And having that ability to start to set these things up so you're not constantly having to, you know, do it manually. Oh, let's send this, let's send that. And I think a lot of this will come from seeing what the different things we try. I agree with Martin entirely on all of these other things that we can do to really personalize, make it more exciting. Again, this is still about how you deliver that content. So, you know, we could deliver some great AR or VR experiences, but it's got to be the right stuff that appeals to people in the right time. And we've got to remember as well, we don't want to frighten off our more traditional customers that perhaps, you know, don't want to walk in somewhere that feels a bit like they've arrived in the Las Vegas casino and walk straight back out again. I would say as well that there is still a huge opportunity around new product introduction. I mean, we all know that probably 8 out of 10 fail. We know that a lot of the reasons is failure to get distribution, but also that distribution happens because shoppers don't notice the new product. They don't know the features. And we're only, I think, just starting to understand how we can use this type of approach and digital media to get that new product message out there. And if we can improve the success of that, it's going to benefit the retailers and the brands and the agencies they work with absolutely massively, because there's so much money being thrown away with product launches that just don't work. And even to understand what are the innovations to a product that a customer wants to see. So to Martin's point about interactive, why wouldn't we provide the ability for a customer with a simple scan to give feedback at the shelf on that product, whether they bought it or not? You know, the only benefit that's probably come out of COVID is that everybody in the world now knows what a QR code is. So we can really use them without, you know, people going, oh, what's that funny square thing in the corner? I think it's a great way to achieve the personalization as well. I mean, the advantage online is you've got limitless space to display and do things. In a store, you've only got one set of space. So we need cleverer techniques to make that shelf space feel bigger and personalized. And I think we'll see techniques probably haven't even thought of yet that will come along to drive that personalization. And the great thing about what we do is we're providing a platform that's future-proof, so we can plug these things in as they come along. It's not about reinvesting in all of that infrastructure. So we're thinking that all the time. How do we make this future-proof so that our clients can take advantage of these clever ideas that come along whenever they arrive?
David, that was a great point, especially around the physical store is 10 times bigger because it's the omni-channel store. So that point around in-store displays, they can actually promote online only because there's lack of space or the store's not big enough. A brilliant idea. And I think most commercial managers now want your number because you've bigged up the product launch success. Well done.
Yeah, Martin, you make a really good point about that optimization piece. And also, too, it jumped out to me, you know, content is king. And that was great that David called that out. But also thinking about how content, you know, I loved your point about sustainability, for example. And it isn't just putting content out there, it's refining the content in a way that, you know, resonates with specific shoppers. And that's a tremendous opportunity because, you know, that's the biggest challenge everyone has is what's the message that's going to resonate with everyone? And the answer is no message resonates with everyone. You know, you have to fine tune it. So yeah, the opportunity for personalization and customization and that agility, as you mentioned before, you know, on the fly with the content, really exciting stuff. So Kalman, what do you think? What are some of the things that you see coming around the corner?
Well, I think, you know, we're using cutting edge technology right now with the customers, but I think it's also important that we use it in the background and to free our teams up to give traditional customer service. Because, you know, we spent a lot of time going around with clipboards in the past. And now with the digital systems that we have in place, let's say we're able to do automated orders, the ticketing we don't need to do. So there's a lot of tasks that are unnecessary being taken away from us. And I think it's, you know, it's amazing that we can use that time now to be on the shop floor, to be with our customers instead of being in an office, you know, typing up orders. We can just automate whatever, all of these tasks. And I think a lot of customers respond to the fact that we are more present on the shop floor. If you come into our store in specific, there's always people around because there's no need for them to be in the office because we've automated so much in the background. And I think that's key for the future, to keep the traditional elements alive of old-fashioned customer service.
I
Yeah,
love that point. I love that point because I've been saying that high tech is at its best when it drives high touch. And I love what you're saying about, with all of the, clickbait headlines about technology taking over the world and taking over this personalization and this one-to-one interaction with actual humans. I think you make such a great point about how the technology actually enables you to bring back some of those more traditional touch points and interactions because you're getting away with some of those repetitive tasks that take store associates off of that. So great point there. And I'm sorry, David, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I wanted to support that and make that very clear, that even though we're a technology company, we see the people side of this as important, if not more important than ever before, for many of the reasons that Kalman has stated. I think one of the reasons why people still in their larger numbers come into retail stores is they actually like being around real people. And they like being around real people that are in good spirits and can help them and just be enthusiastic. And, otherwise by now everybody would be sitting in their own plastic bubbles and never sort of coming out and just doing everything they want, online. So no, we think the people side's really important, and it's a really key part of what we're doing as an organization,
it brings a seamless journey for both customers, the internal customer and the external customer. I mean, it already unlocks the creativity and unlocks the value and unlocks the hours that Kalman's already said to do the right thing at the right time, which is a difficult thing to do in retail, especially with customers. But if you can achieve a seamless journey for the internal customer and the external customer, that's you're in utopia.
So what do you think, Kalman? Do you have anything to add to that in terms of what you're seeing and where things are going next?
Well, I just think that the future is bright. It's definitely more technology focused for the customers and for us as well. But we just need to keep in mind that not everyone is on the same level of technology as we are. And a lot of times, think that something is blatantly obvious to you, but for other customers, it is not. So we just need to keep in mind that just because we're technological ourselves, it doesn't mean that everybody is. And I think that sometimes we need a reminder for that.
Great reminder. Well, I'll throw in a couple of forecasts sort of on the macro in terms of retail media. One thing I think is really going to be a big growth engine going into next year in particular are these non-endemic opportunities where retail companies that don't even do business with retailers will be clamoring to gain access to all of this great data and all of these great insights, and particularly now with all of the technology being unleashed in store and the potential to learn more about in-store activity and those touch points. And I think secondly, too, I think as retailers get more accustomed to gathering this in-store data and harnessing it, retailers are going to have even more influence over assets that they don't own. So some of that, I think, is going to start radiating from retail stores and out to other touch points that are not necessarily considered to be part of retail. So either way, I think, combined, both of these are going to drive, when you talk about some of the numbers that Martin was sharing in terms of where they are now and what they're projected to be, I think, we may be very pleasantly surprised by how big those grow when you look at how much bigger the ecosystem is getting from retail media and then how it will radiate out to other touch points and other media. So this has really been such an exciting conversation. And I see that we already have some questions coming in, which I definitely want to get to. And I just think it's been so wonderful to talk about not just the upside of it and all of the potential, profit and all of that. Of course, that's exciting, but the way that it impacts shopper experience and the way that, when you were talking about how you have happy associates and people smiling when you walk in the store because they're doing what they want to do and they're being unburdened, I guess, by so many of these repetitive tasks and things that were tedious and sort of taking the joy out of retail work. So you guys brought a lot of great dimension to that. And I think that's really awesome and important to talk about. So to get to some of these questions, let's look here what we've got. We've got somebody was asking, Brenda was asking, how is generative AI influencing retail consumer buying decisions digitally or in store? Who wants to take that?
Kalman was talking about AI within the system. I think that's a good start. And then I can talk about a few macro trends. Yeah, definitely.
Yes, well, maybe I'll take that as well. Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, Kalman's very familiar with using it. He might not be as familiar quite as how it's built, but so yeah, you're right. We're actually using AI in quite a number of our solutions now. So the AI is helping us to do things like make price suggestions, to identify opportunities around waste reduction. It's also turning what we're seeing, for example, with cameras into structured data that can then use AI to determine what needs to be done at the shelf. I think that's not probably going quite as far as the sort of generative AI that I think is being referred to. I don't think that's very far away from how we use that in some of the solutions. We certainly have used it a little bit internally to help us shape some of the messaging around what we're trying to achieve with some of our solutions. And, you know, sometimes it's coming up with stuff that's putting it in a better way, that's helping our customers to understand what we're trying to do. And that ultimately is going to benefit, obviously, their customers as well. So we're really on the starting journey. I've downloaded a couple of generative AI things myself, and are quite struck by what it can do. But from my point of view, I think there's probably other R&D people in my organization that could talk to this better than I can, but it's absolutely already starting to be embedded in what we're doing. So don't know what you think, Martin.
And within retail, you've obviously got, we're actually referring to a smart store, which is referring to a smart supply chain, which is referring to smart merchandising. So all of that is the usage of AI, in particular generative AI. You even got the perfect example of Nike investing heavily in AI to actually work out the emotion of their consumers and when they buy, how they buy. So it's going past the transactional, it's going past the appealing, and now actually deep rooted in your feelings as their consumer. They're going into that level. So I believe firmly, as long as it's safely, I believe that AI will be every touch point within retail, let it be within the box, supply chain to the box, or as I've mentioned, even from a brand like Nike that wants to talk about, wants to investigate, and wants to find out your emotions. And that connectivity is the ultimate loyalty. So I think it is huge. We probably haven't quite mapped it out yet as a world, never mind the retailers, but it's definitely a non-negotiable, I think, in terms of.
Yeah, I can certainly see that with the insight that we're gathering together. Take, for example, you know, what was the footfall of the dwell and the direction and the sales and the stock and so on against a piece of content that AI can then be used to say, you know what, this is better content for what you're seeing for this stuff in this point in the store. And I think that's is a realistic objective. And as I said, the content's so important. And then maybe there's just some tweak to that makes a difference that AI will help us to pick up.
But that is an entirely new webinar I think we could do with AI if I could get it.
Yeah, well, you can't have a webinar of any description these days without talking about generative AI. So that was
very true. And a great question. Sorry, a great question. Great question.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. So Brooke asked a question. I think now we're getting down to some of the nitty gritty here on the in-store piece of it and execution. She has a question about cameras and displays on shelves. One of the concerns is the investment cost and asset management associated with wiring shelves, setting cameras at the shelf level. Are retailers open to these kinds of investments, and do you see costs going down?
Right, there's a whole bunch of questions there. So first of all, everything that we run in the store runs in the cloud, first of all. So the need for heavy infrastructure to drive all this is just not there. And in fact, we can also work with many of the leading providers of access points like Meraki, Aruba, and so on. So you don't even have to put in extra access points to drive all this. Secondly, from a camera point of view, our cameras are actually wireless. There's no need to cable anything. They just slot in on a shelf, on a little bracket. They're battery driven, the batteries are rechargeable. They connect through Wi-Fi. So very easy to install, very easy to move around. Obviously, the one area that requires power still is a video rail or a TV and so on. And I'm dreaming of the day that I could run wireless power to a video rail, and it'll come. You know, that's one of the few. In terms of investment, it's all about return on investment. So, you know, I always get asked, well, what does that cost? What does that cost? And of course, what I want to do is turn the conversation to, well, no, this is about what return you get. And we always look at modeling the benefits. We look at case studies and so on. And we run pilots, trials, POCs. And the aim of those is to prove those benefits are there before we get anywhere near a major investment decision. And you know, if you only look at things purely in terms of cost, maybe you do nothing. And I've always said to people, you know, if I asked you for £1,000 and I'm going to give you £10,000 back in 3 weeks, you'll find the money. If I ask you for 50 pence and I'll give you £1 back in 10 years, you won't.
Great point. Well, here's another question on the power balance in retail media, and well, what will basically the changing power balance in the role of agencies and the traditionally strong role of media agencies in business and partnerships. And I think I know where this is going, and I'll jump in here. It's funny, I just did a podcast with a couple of leading retail media companies, and we had a really great discussion about this, because I think the traditional view right now is that some of these agencies are maybe a little bit panicked. You know, they're competing with retailers, and retailers are taking a big chunk of that business. And of course, retailers have the bully pulpit too, to tell their brands, hey, you need to go to our retail networks before you look outside. But it really is a lot more nuanced than that, I think, and it's not a zero-sum game. In fact, what I'm hearing is a lot of agencies feel like sort of the rising tide lifts all boats, that agencies are getting a lot smarter. They're deciding now, you know, to do different things and to play a different role, particularly on the creative side. And I think there's a little bit of a rejiggering going on, but at the end of the day, it really creates opportunities for everyone. And I don't think that any retail media effort on the part of a retailer, I don't think any of them are saying, hey, we can do all of this. We want to completely cut agencies out of the picture. It really is just a matter of who's going to do what going forward and how everybody can work together. And with all of the things that we've talked about, with all the great technology and that David's been talking about, and Martin and Kalman, you really do get the sense that the pie is just getting bigger, I think, and that includes agencies as well. Does anyone have anything else to add on that?
No, it's a valid point. Absolutely. The world changed. We've all changed. They will change, and they'll get smarter. No different to anything else. So I'm confident it'll balance out. I understand the angst perhaps, but it's just a new thing. Change is obvious. And these guys have changed a lot. If you think of that industry during COVID, it's just a further evolution rather than revolution.
Yeah. Yep. An old boss of mine once said, and he presented this in front of a room of business leaders, there are two types of business or companies in the world, those that change and those that die. And I think it's entirely up to them if they want to move with the way this is going. One of the interesting wrinkles I see here is talking to people that have very large print budgets, getting frightened about losing their very big print budgets, rather than saying, why don't you try and redeploy that in a much more effective way with the trend of what's actually happening. So the opportunity's there for them if they want to play, 100%. I think.
100%.
And going to a little bit more of a technical piece here, talking about the data aspect, what are your thoughts about monetization with CPGs? Do you see clean rooms as a solution for first-party data sharing between retailers and CPGs in order to enrich and monetize data? Who wants to take that?
Answer is yes. Again, the announcement with Tesco's and Pinterest actually is highly documented there. So the answer is yes. It's probably the easiest way of saying it.
David, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, no discrimination. The data is and the data that can be turned into insight is so valuable. And I think, one of the points I was trying to make earlier is there are budgets and there are opportunities to be unlocked by actually getting better insight. And the more you can combine that, I think, across not just within your own environment, your own business, but what's going on outside, all that's possible. And it isn't just a 1 + 1 = 2. It's a 1 + 1 = 3 plus another 1 = 5, and so on. And again, I think, back to the AI question, AI will give us the capability to really understand how we get the value out of all that data. What we don't want to do is get totally swamped with it and not find the real key nuggets.
Okay, and I want to acknowledge that question was actually from Ilan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. That we have a question. Let's close with this question. Take one more from Zornitsa from LinkedIn. Where do you see the role of clienteling in the personalization of retail? Anyone?
No, I was waiting for Martin on that one because he's that's in his expertise, I think.
I would just clienteling is customer service in America. Am I right?
Yeah. Take it. I'm sure you can take it that way.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's got with an element of personalization. I think, Martin, that people that recognize you when you come in and deal with you as an individual, knowing what you're interested in and that kind of. I take the question anyway.
It's that ability to be seamless at the same time. So the example I would give you is in the future, maybe 2030, 35 maybe, when they already know that you're coming into the store from your car park because you've got your mobile phone on you. They already know that perhaps you've already got 42 items in order that they're picking now in the back of the store. They already know it's your son's birthday at the bakery and therefore will see you browsing in the bakery section. We'll actually say happy birthday to your son if they're, otherwise, are you looking for a birthday cake? Do you want to order it right now? And they already know at the fruit and veg, if you're dwelling, for example, maybe longer than usual, looking at promotions, at that point, it will trigger a customer assistant to come up and say, are you okay? Rather than just hounding you for no reason because you walked in the door. So all of these things will play into that seamless journey of the internal customer supporting the external customer as in the actual customer. So I think customer service, Colman had made a perfect example. It has to be still top of priority. I've just given you a future outlook where I think it will get to that hyper personalization where it's a soft touch, but the soft touch is what you want. And if it is you're dwelling a lot and you're looking lost, people will make sure that they support you. But everything will trigger when you're in the store. So when you walk out of the store, you've already got your 42 items that are pre-packed, which is your milk and your cheese. You've picked up your birthday cake. You got yourself a coffee. You've walked out as frictionless with your 13 items and your 42 pre-packed items. You go back into your car and away you go. From smart home to smart store, the customization of the brand will be seamless, and that's the key point.
Wow, what a great way to wrap it up in terms of the potential there. David, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to add one small practical thing there, which is because that's all fantastic, but I think as we do this, we need to have what I would call a "don't bug me now" feature, because there are occasions when you just don't want to. I'll give you a good example: rushing into a convenience store at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night because I've got no milk and I've got no toothpaste, so I can't start my day tomorrow. I don't want to be bugged. I want to get in, get my 2 items, get out. But on other occasions, when I'm more engaged or I'm in an electronics, yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, but I think let's just be sensitive to what people, how they want to be engaged at any particular time, because individuals will have different needs at different times.
Yeah.
Then I think
yeah, that's a perfect way to sum it up, because I think really the whole conversation, if it distills down to one big point, it's meeting customers where they are and having wonderful tools to be able to do that. So with that, we'll wrap things up. And to learn more about where retail media is going next and the latest in store shopper engagement, see the QR code on the screen there, hit that, and you'll have some really great information about some of the solutions that are on the way and the ones that are working now, and a lot of the things that we've been talking about today and how they're actually being put into action. And if you want to reach out to any of the panelists, the information for their LinkedIn profiles is on the screen, so make sure to do that. I know everyone would love to hear from you. Also, too, if you have any additional questions or questions that we didn't get to, we'll do our best to take care of those offline, so we won't leave you hanging. So thank you so much to the panel and for sharing such great insights today on the potential of retail media and all of the different aspects of it. I think you did such a great job of just covering all the bases there and just all the exciting opportunities. And I also want to thank everyone who attended today for listening in, and I look forward to next time. Thanks so much.